I just had a question for the Bengals guys here. There was a lot of overreaction, I think, in Reed and Casey were talking about that over the past couple weeks. How the Bengals are never going to sign anybody, how it's disappointing, yada yada yada. As of right now, after the signing yesterday, if you had to give an off-season grade so far, because you can still make more moves here, if you had to give an off-season grade, what would you guys give the Bengals?
I mean, I think the move for Trent Brown is very significant. I was not a fan of Mekhi Becton. I didn't think that was going to work out at all. But Trent Brown, to me, has proven that he can do it. To me, this is like anywhere between a B to a B+. Probably closer to the B+. I don't think it's an A. I don't think it's a slam dunk because they're admitting that they made mistakes at the safety position and that they're correcting those. That automatically, to me, kind of deducts points. And I know it's not a fair deduction, but it's one that they are basically correcting mistakes. So, in my opinion, it's like a B+.
The grade improves because they've admitted that they've made mistakes. If they would have sat here and said, listen, the safeties didn't perform the way we wanted them to last year, but we believe in these guys and we're going to keep them and we're not going to make improvements, that's when you dip your grade. For me, it's a B+ to an A-, somewhere in that range. I agree with you that for the most part they've addressed concerns. There's a couple other areas that they could still address, but to admit that you made a mistake as an organization is much more telling about where the Bengals are today as an organization versus where they were 5 years ago, because they would have held on to those guys for the duration of their contract in the past.
Well, that's fair too, but I mean, like, they admitting that they made a mistake and going in so heavily like they did. Now, the Von Bell thing.
See,
if they didn't have to spend, if they spent a bunch of money on Von Bell, this grade would be even worse. But it's a B. Like I said, it's probably closer to a B+ to me because they were able to successfully address both safety positions cheaply. If they had went and gotten like a Xavier McKinney or like some top tier safety, I would have been pretty upset.
I don't think the Bengals necessarily went into the offseason wanting to get two safeties. I think that they wanted to get one. I think they like what they have between Jordan Battle and Dax. Like they figure that they have one good safety there. They needed to get one. I think the Von Bell thing just kind of fell in their lap. Von Bell's a free agent again, and he needs somewhere to play. Just played terrible last year, and they're just like, hey, that's something comfortable. Former captain on the team, has had his best years in Cincinnati. Let's bring him in. It wasn't a plan to completely overhaul the safety position. You asked a grade. I'm with these guys. I like every single move that they've made. I think that there's still two that they have to make, which is a veteran cornerback and a nose tackle. But I like Mike Gesicki. I think we're going to love Mike Gesicki here.
I agree.
Yeah,
because he's going to be a red zone option at the tight end position, which Joe Burrow has never had. I love Zach Moss. I know that's a divisive thing. He's cheaper. He's younger. He's got less tread on the tires. He's more explosive. Check. I like Trent Brown. It's a definitive guy that's had success. Former Super Bowl champ. Former Pro Bowler. Yes. Geno Stone, second in the NFL last year in interceptions, and we got him when he's 24 years old. And that's because the Ravens are spending money elsewhere, and they said, hey, kind of like what the Bengals did with their safety positions last year, like, hey, we can't spend. But we got Geno Stone for 2 years and $15 million. That's cheaper than 1 year of Jesse Bates. Geno Stone's not as good as Jesse Bates, and you can tell by the market there, but Geno Stone's coming off a career year. And I think he fits very well. And then Von Bell, I like every single move that they've had, including Sheldon Rankins. I didn't even mention him. Pass rush on the interior is the way of the future in the NFL. In fact, last 5 Super Bowl champs have all had a disruptive interior lineman. Now, their names are Chris Jones and Aaron Donald and Vita Vea, and Sheldon Rankins ain't that, but it does give a disruptive front. I like every single move that the Bengals have made so far. I would be dangerous to put it in the A territory because there's still 2 places that they still have to get, and I think that's a veteran cornerback and a nose tackle, but a B+ is more than fair.
Von Bell, quite frankly, fell right in their lap. I mean, you couldn't have scripted it out any better if you wanted to keep Von Bell. Like, I know Von Bell was missed last season, and that was one of the Jesse Bates, Von Bell, you can't have them both, Dark Day in Hell or whatever it was that Lou Armadillo, and I always say Armadillo because I can't say Anarumo. Lou Anarumo said. I get all that, but you can't literally forecast it any better. Like if you were to say, hey, you're going to basically get Von Bell for free, but you just got to ship him away for a year. It would be like kind of be like a unique thing to be like, that might be worth it. We might actually just do that. We'll see if Geno Stone pans out, but like that's the thing that's weird about the NFL is like there's this weird phenomenon to where certainly can we all just agree that when you become so good, you're on the upper echelon of the league. You're a part of this small specific group of teams that can actually win the Super Bowl. And then from there, as terrible as this is to say, and some people are going to hate my guts for saying it, I think some of it just comes down to luck. It's just luck.
Sure. It's
just luck. Do your guys stay healthy? Do you get the right calls? Does the ball bounce your way? When a guy fumbles when he's in the red zone, does it actually bounce to your guy or does it bounce to the other guy? At some point, it is what it is. It's a relatively even playing field. And the Bengals have found themselves now in a position where I don't know how you couldn't give it an A, in my opinion, largely based off the fact that they've put themselves in a position where when you go into the draft isn't even happened yet, which is the kind of the crazy part. For those that are pessimistic about maybe some of the moves, and I'm not saying that anyone in this room's that way, but if you are a Bengals fan that's somewhat pessimistic about some of the moves they've made, the question is like the draft hasn't even happened yet. So when you add the draft in, you get the weapons from that. You add it all up, and you like to think that the Bengals are going to be at least a part of those upper echelon teams that then now have a chance to win the whole thing. And then I don't want to say again, it's all luck. Certainly, some of it comes down to what you said that sparked my thought process with this is that the difference between Geno Stone and again maybe a guy like Jesse Bates might be, and again this is a huge stretch, but maybe that's the difference between winning the Super Bowl or not. You know, like the margin for difference of winning a Super Bowl and not winning a Super Bowl seems so small. But then I keep saying if that's the case, then honestly, it's whether or not. And again, I don't want to bring up like scar tissue here, but it's whether or not you get a roughing the passer on Patrick Mahomes when he runs out of bounds. It's whether they call a terrible holding penalty on Logan Wilson in the red zone. Like those are. I hate to say it, but like that becomes the difference more times than not of whether or not you got this guy in free agency or that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing too, I got two things. I'm going to change my statement from the B plus to an actual B plus. Just here on air, I'm going to state that because I don't want people to kill me. Two, the other reason why it's not an A to me is because of what's going on with T Higgins as well. Now, that's subject to change if they do something with T Higgins, if they trade him. I don't like the idea of them tagging and then not doing anything and getting no value from that. That's the only reason why it's being held back from an A. But the draft, like you said, again, has not even happened yet, and we're sitting at a B+. That could easily change when the draft hits the grades. So,
but I don't know what you can do with T Higgins. I don't fault that. I don't fault the Bengals for that. If he came
that was
out,
the first move made in the offseason. Was
correct.
Tagging
He
him.
tagged him.
Yeah,
which is the right move. You had to tag him, but yeah, it's just if you could trade him or not. To the point that Trace brought up about like the difference between like winning a Super Bowl and not winning a Super Bowl. The best analogy I can have for that is like we are very much talking about auxiliary things. Like when you have a guy like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, you're in an area where you are thinking at least that you are contenders. It's much different than the current area that the Carolina Panthers are at. It's much different than where the Washington Commanders are at, where the analogy I'll give is like we already have a home, we have a couple of cars, we have a job. Now we're worried about like what blinds do we put on the windows. Now we're worried about like what do we do, what's our hobby to spend our extra time, where Carolina and the Commanders are worried about where the hell am I going to live? How am I going to get to work every single day? Like, it is very much we're worrying about different things, and they are auxiliary things, but sometimes that's the difference between hoisting the Lombardi Trophy or getting bounced by the goddamn Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship again.
It's important to remember we're really only halfway through the offseason. The biggest piece of the whole puzzle is going to be what they do in the draft. Now, there are obvious question marks around T. Higgins. Is he going to play? Are we going to trade him? What are we going to do? If we get to draft week and they trade T. Higgins in our first to move up to a top 10 draft pick, and you address your long-term tackle needs or you address
Right.
your wide receiver replacement needs, I think we all would agree that that would bump the grade up, right? The Bengals to this point for me have done what they've needed to do. I agree it would be great to go out and get a veteran presence on the DB line. It would be great to go out and get a nose tackle. But at the end of the day, they have put themselves in a position to significantly improve this roster versus where it was last year and are still not done.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Bengals could find themselves in a position where they have a, let's call it a tackle, which, again, the chances of this, like Casey said, he doesn't want to put the Bengals in a position where they have to take something specific no matter what because they're in a spot where they have to have it. But if they have a tackle that they rate, let's call it significantly high, and they fall, like, again, you guys keep talking about how tackles kind of the top guys are the top guys, and then after that, you're basically trying to find a needle in the haystack of finding someone that's serviceable. But if that like all of this talk is crazy before the draft's over because in my opinion, let's say they do find a guy that they love at tackle that falls to them at 18 and they're just like, you know what, I know we just signed Trent Brown, but we can't let this guy pass. We think he's going to be probably one of the centerpieces. They get him. Let's just say he turns into like all rookie team and all of this is not for naught. Like I don't know what you do with the two Browns if that happens, but that's my point. It's like for those that are concerned about the Bengals and where they're at right now from the offseason perspective, it seems like a waste of time until the draft's completely over. That's my quite honest take on the whole thing.